Chapter 10. The sixth harbinger, the sycamore. He said the image was clear. So what was it? She asked the tree. He replied, a tree as in the prophecy? Yes, as in the very next words of the prophecy. So harbinger was being revealed to you in the same order as you appeared in Isaiah 9:10. In the exact same order, he said, the prophecy moved from the stone to the sycamore. But we revealed with carried the stone, the sycamore have been cut down. So the tree on her seal, it was a sycamore? She asked. That's what I assumed. And so where did it lead you? I went deeper, as before, into the original language to find the Hebrew behind the word sycamore. And you found sakam. The word translated the sycamore is the Hebrew sakam. It's also known as the fig mulberry tree. How do you get sycamore from that? The Greek word for fig is sukkos, and for mulberry is moros. Put them together and you get sycamore or sycamore. Its Latin name is the Ficus sycamores morus, a wide-spreading tree that reaches a height of about 50 feet. In biblical times, they grew in Israel's lowlands and along the roads and highways. So you did your homework, and I pursued it. I even took my quest to the New York Botanical Garden, but it didn't lead me any closer to the mystery of the sixth harbinger. In fact, it led me farther away. The more I learned about the sycamore, the farther I was from the answer. Why? Oh, what could the cutting down of the sycamore tree possibly have to do with America or 9/11? The ancient Assyrians may have been interested in cutting down sycamores, but now the terrorists of 9/11, they targeted the cities, not forests of farmlands. How could the cutting down of a sycamore tree have anything to do with it? There is no connection. That was my first problem, but the second was falter. Which was? It doesn't grow here. Not in America, northeast, not naturally. The ficus sycamore is native to the Middle East and Africa. It doesn't grow in climate with frost. The only way you could keep it alive in New York or in the Washington D.C. is to keep it inside or wrapped up in blankets and plastic. And some people actually do that, but it's a novelty. The sycamore of Isaiah 9:10 is alien to the American Northeast. So 9/11 had nothing to do with the trees, and the sycamore has nothing to do with the Northeast. So what did you do? After a few more dead ends, I gave up trying. I figured that somehow, whatever I was supposed to know, I would end up knowing. And did you end up knowing? I ended up in Central Park on the lake in the lowboat. It's something I do when I need to clear my mind. There's a bridge there, a walking bridge which stretches over the water in the long arc. If you're in a rowboat, you can pass underneath, which is what I did twice. The first time going out, the second time coming back in. It was the second time, just as I was emerging from underneath, that I noticed a man on the bridge as I looked it up. He was standing in the middle of the bridge with both hands resting on the railing and looking down at me, I think, but I wasn't sure. The prophet? Yes. And you didn't see him the first time you passed under the bridge? I don't even know if he was there when I first went through. So what happened? I stopped rowing and shouted up at him, is that you? I just wanted to make sure. Who else could I be but me? Came the response. It's definitely you, I said softly. And how's your search going, Nuriel? He asked. How does it look like it's going? I'm in a rowboat on a lake in Central Park. Not very well. But you're in a place of trees. Is this the place of our next meeting? I guess it is. Then how do we meet? Either you get out of the boat and join me on the bridge, or I get off the bridge and join you in the boat. I recommend it. I recommend the latter. So he came down from the bridge while I navigated the boat to the side to find a place from which he could get in, which he did. It was now me and the prophet in a rowboat on a lake in Central Park. There were several other boats in the water that day, but from the moment he joined me, everything else faded into the background as a focus turned to an ancient mystery and the future of a nation. We could have been anywhere. And you continued rowing as you spoke? Yes, as you spoke, and as I recorded. It was the quiet for of time. We both were. As the boat neared the middle of the lake, the prophet broke the silence. So, Nuriel, what have you found so far? The sixth harbinger is the sycamore from Isaiah 9:10. But we revealed with the curved stone, the sycamore had been cut down. And why do you think the sycamore would have been cut down? He asked. It had to be the Assyrians in their invasion, probably devastating the land. And why would a fallen sycamore be significant? That's as far as I got. If the fallen bricks foreshadowed the nation's future collapse, what did the fallen sycamore foreshadow? I don't know. It's a sign of uprooting, the unlooting of a kingdom. Do you have the seal, Nuriel? I gave it to him. He held it up as he began to reveal its meaning. The sixth harbinger, the destruction isn't limited to buildings. The enemy's attack causes the sycamore to be cut down. The fallen sycamore is a sign of a warning, and in the ignoring of the warning becomes the prophecy of judgment. The sixth harbinger, the sign of uprooting the sycamore. But what does it have to do with America? The agent of all Queda weren't interested in sycamore, and the sycamore of Isaiah 9:10 grows in the Middle East and Africa, not anywhere near the events of 911. That's true, he said. So I don't see how anything could connect. The chances of don't mean anything. What do you mean? In the last moment of the calamity, the North Tower began to collapse. In the middle of that collapse, it sent debris and wreckage through the air toward a plot of land at the border of Ground Zero. It was unlike the other properties surrounding Ground Zero in that it was covered with concrete, steel, or asphalt, but with soil and grass. I stopped rowing and let the boat glide. He paused for a moment before continuing. The wreckage hurt by the falling tower struck an object. An object? What kind of an object? A tree? No. After the cloud of dust began to clear, police officers, rescue workers, and onlookers gazed at the little plot of land at the edge of Ground Zero. There in the middle of the ashy and debris that covered the ground was fallen tree. It would soon become a symbol of 911 and of Ground Zero. And it was a symbol, but one much more ancient than anyone there could have realized, and one carrying a message no one could have fathomed. What tree was it? I asked. The tree that was struck down, he answered. What kind of tree was it? It was the sycamore tree. The tree at Ground Zero that was struck down on September 11. Was a sycamore tree, but how? I asked, how could it? They don't grow here. When the American leaders declared we will rebuild the same words of Israel's ancient wall, did they proclaim it in ancient Hebrew? No, of course not, I replied. And why not? He asked. Because American leaders don't speak ancient Hebrew, and who would have understood it exactly in each case, the ancient and the modern? The leaders speak in the tongue of their people and nation. The harbinger is translated into the context of a nation in which it appears and to the people to whom it is directed. So too with the sign of the sycamore, it was translation. A translation how the tree matches the nation, the land. The tree of Isaiah 9:10 was endemic to Israel. So the tree of 9:11 was endemic to America. But you said it was the sycamore. It's classified under the genuine platanus, but it's known by its common English name, sycamore. It was a sycamore, but yes, you were right, Maria. The Middle Eastern sycamore doesn't naturally grow in America Northeast, but there exists a version of a sycamore that does the English sycamore. The English sycamore, a translation of a harbinger. And it was the English sycamore that happened to be growing on the little plot of land at the border of Ground Zero. And it was named sycamore because it was named after the Middle Eastern sycamore. So the tree that was struck down on 911 was named after the tree of Isaiah 9:10. Yes, the ancient Middle Eastern harbinger was translated into the Western form into an American tree bearing the same name of the Middle Eastern tree of Israel's judgment. And it just happened to be standing there on the corner of Ground Zero on 911. Just as with everything else, he said, it just happened to be. But the Assyrians intended to cut down the sycamore tree. The terrorists of 911 didn't. The terrorists have no idea of Isaiah 9:10, no idea of the harbingers, no idea of a sycamore tree growing at the corner of Ground Zero, and no idea that their attack would cause it to fall or that its fall was connected to an ancient prophecy. They had no idea, but still it happened. And what happened after it fell, I asked. It became the focal point of interest and attention. It was transformed into the symbol, just as with the harbinger before it. The harbingers are, among other things, symbols, so the sycamore became a symbol of 911. It was labeled the sycamore of Ground Zero. Articles were written about it. It was placed on public display. Crowds gathered around to see it, but they had no idea of the message it carried or how far reaching that message was. Not did they take note of the small object entwined in its roots, which was a brick. He replied, the bricks have fallen, and the sycamores have been cut down. The whole thing is, I can't even put it into words. Everything replaying itself, everything following the details of an ancient prophecy, now even inanimate subject, the tower, the stone, the tree, and with nobody orchestrating it. With nobody orchestrating it because it had to happen. The harbingers manifested it because they had to manifest as signs, as prophetic messages. And what message does the sign of a sycamore hold for America? I asked. It's a sign of a fall, of a cutting down and uprooting an end. When it appeared in ancient Israel, it prophesied the nation's downfall and the end of its kingdom, and now it reappears for America. So does that mean that there has to be an extra warning, said the prophet? It all depends if the warning is heeded, and if it's not heeded, if a tree falls to the ground and no one hears it, doesn't make a sound, does it? I asked. In the case of sycamore, it makes too. For those who hear it, the sound of warning and the call to redemption, and for those who don't, the sound of judgment. We were silent for a time. Then he reached into his coat pocket and handed me the next thing. I examined it without saying anything, placed it in my pocket, then resumed rowing to bring the boat back into the dock. And what clue do you have for me concerning the seventh harbinger? I asked as we neared the dock. It's as clear as the one before it. He replied, closer joined to sycamore. Yes, it's another image of a tree, but different, correct? There are two trees in the prophecy, I said. So seventh harbinger has to be the second tree. You see, Nuriel, it's not so hard. You've already figured out all that, and without even spending weeks searching for the answer, and we haven't even reached the dog, then why do we need to weeks or months before the next meeting for you to work on it? Why don't we just keep going here? It's a place of trees, the setting works. He thought for a moment, then responded, why not then? Then we will do it here. Why not? He repeated. I never expect him to agree to a suggestion. It threw me. It threw me enough to question him. So Prophet can change the appointed plan? Who said the plan was changed? But I was the one who came up with the idea. And how do you know that you're coming up with the idea to change the plan wasn't the appointed plan in the first place? If it was a change of plan, then it wasn't appointed. And if it was appointed, he replied, then it wasn't a change of plan. So you're saying you plan to continue here all along before I mentioned it? Whether I planned it or whether it happened because it was planned without my planning, it makes no difference. I think you're just saying all this, and you're free to think that, he replied. So I'm free to think that. I don't have to think that, but that doesn't mean it wasn't planned, he added. How could it be voiced? I asked. It takes two oars to make a boat go straight, meaning it's both free will and predestination, meaning you need to use both oars and focus on keeping the boat straight so we can make it back to dry land.